Good afternoon, councillors, directors, officers and members of the public, and it's good to see so many of you here today. I now declare the special council meeting opened at 4:01. On behalf of the City of Busselton, all present, I acknowledge the Wardandi Bibleman people as the traditional custodians of this region and pay our respects to their elders past and present. This meeting is being recorded for minute-taking purposes and is being live-streamed on the YouTube channel. And I would ask if you could set your phones so they don't ring, that'll be great. In attendance, I have myself, Mayor Cronin, Deputy Mayor Councillor Anne Ryan, Councillor Cagg, Councillor McNeish, Councillor Love, Councillor Cox and Councillor Kennedy. And apologies from Councillor Jodie Lee. No received apology from? No. Okay, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, the purpose of this meeting is to adopt the 2025 and 26 City of Busselton annual budget and reaffirm the fees and charges for the 2025-2026 financial year. I have a disclosure of interest from Councillor Cagg of Proximity that she will raise closer to the time. I will move on to public question times. Now, just a reminder that any questions that are asked, because this is a special council meeting, can only be specific to the budget. So I do understand maybe some of you are here with regards to the dog beaches. And I'd also like to mention that with regards to the ordinary council meeting, there is nothing on the agenda for the dog meet, the dog beaches or the AMP, as this will not be coming in till at least after the submissions have closed, of which I believe we have nearly 2,400 submissions. So that's the case. And also there will be a limit Standing Orders announces 15 minutes for question time, but I will be happy to extend that to 30 minutes. But just that's for the ordinary council meeting that will be following. So just for clarity on that point. So any questions that come up now will need to be about this item, which is the budget that we have in front of us. Thank you. On that note, we have received one question from Andrew Dickey. So, and Mr. Dickey, if you'd like to come forward.
Andrew Dickey from Busselton. I have three very short questions, all to do with something that's in the budget agenda, namely salt water. What proportion, if any, of the council rates increase will be used to repay funds into the building reserve and the various other special purpose reserve funds from which more than $5 million was withdrawn to cover the most recent of several cost overruns for the saltwater building construction costs?
Thank you, Mr. CEO. Would you like to answer that?
Thanks for the question, Dr. Dickey. So $2.37 million is budgeted to be transferred into the building reserve for asset management purposes. This equates to 3.3% of the total rates forecast to be raised. It's guided by the adopted LTFP, or long-term financial plan, and is not specifically to repay funds withdrawn for saltwater, noting that while there is an amount budgeted to be drawn from the building reserve for saltwater, to date nothing has been withdrawn from the building reserve.
Thank you very much for that. Second question, how much money in total has been paid to the saltwater architects, including for the hundreds of construction contract variations in design?
Once again, thanks for the question. A total of $1.75 million has been paid to Kerry Hill Architects.
Thank you. I've seen very different figures, but... Third question is, what is the current annual cost for loan principal repayments and loan interest payments for the 5 state treasury loans that were taken out to finance part of the construction costs of the saltwater building, and what percentage of the total rates income does this represent?
Thanks again for the question. So for the 24-25 principal repayments was $1.4 million and we paid interest of $792,000. As per the loan schedule, so you'll see that's in note 7 of the budget in the attachments of the 25-26 budget, the principal repayments are budgeted at $1.45 million and the interest is budgeted at $749,000.
That does correspond with what I calculated, about $2.2 million in total per year.
Correct, yes. Yeah,
Thank you very
you.
much.
Yeah.
Thank you. Are there any further questions from the gallery? Mr. Evell, if you'd like to come forward.
Don Evell from Geograph. On the officer's comments on the agenda tonight, part says that you're looking for a 14% increase in wages. Can you confirm that?
Ms. Seah.
Refer to Ms Pearson on that one for clarity, thank you.
The increase from 24-25 budget to 25-26 is 12.4. Bearing in mind that is all employee costs, so employee costs encompassed salaries, wages and any costs associated with the employment of staff. Yep.
Officer's comments say 14%, but we'll let that go. But
It's
why
utilities.
can you ask for 12% increase in wages? I emailed everybody here, councillors and the CEO. I had one reply from a councillor who stated that maybe it's because it's coming up to a new enterprise bargaining agreement.
Mr.
over
Evell,
three.
can I just...
I'm asking a
I
question,
would
thank
just like
you.
you to ask the question,
I'm
if
asking
you
a
could,
question.
please.
I need
You're making
to
a statement
clarify
about somebody
the question.
else's... Please, Mr. Evell, I just want to... If you could just ask the question, I'm sorry. Thank you.
According to a source here, you're asking for a 4% increase in wages over 3 years, which equates to the 12% that the officer is asking for. Now, why do you want that money all in one group in 1 year? Why can't it be spread over the 3 years?
So your question is...
Yeah, Mr Evell, they're not related and I couldn't comment on an anonymous source.
Beg your pardon?
I couldn't comment on an anonymous source as you've referred to.
Can you comment on why the 12% that you're asking for?
I think Ms Pearson just did previously, thank you.
Thank you. Do you have any other questions?
585 people,
Mr.
and you
Evell.
want another
Thank you.
increase.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any
Answer
further
the
questions
question.
from the gallery? Being no further questions, I will move on to... We have no presentation by the party. Move on to the item 7.1, which is the adoption of the 2025-26 annual budget. Before we start, I have a proximity interest from Councillor Craig. I know it's in relation to one of the capital schedule items. So what we'll do is I'm going to exclude that item right up front so that you can declare an interest in it. We will then, the council will then vote on that one item in the long-term financial plan, and then that allows you to continue to be able to vote in the rest. So if you want to declare, if I can have that item up in front of us. So, sorry? Sure. So this is the officer recommendation part 1, that the council adopts the age housing capital improvements on the Windalup Court City C listed in the capital acquisition and the construction budget on page 108 of attachment 2.
Okay.
Thank you.
I wish to declare a proximity interest in the item just mentioned because I reside in the Windalup Court Villas, aged housing owned by the City of Busselton, funded in the operational and capital budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kay. If you're happy to leave the room. Thank you.
Can I ask a question, please?
Sure. It's just proximity? Yes.
Last year we were issued with recommendations or advice from staff if there was a belief that any of us had a financial interest. Is that not relevant this year?
Yes, and Councillor, an email was sent out Monday or Friday Just letting people know to make sure that they considered what was in the budget to see if they had any financial or proximity or impartiality interests. I think that's hence Councillor Craig is declaring a proximity in relation to that item only. Yeah. So
And
if you don't
all-
have anything on the capital
All
works
elected
schedule, then you
members
probably
are
don't. Yeah.
responsible for their own.
Oh, no, I appreciate that, but I just didn't see the email. Thank you. I don't believe so, but, yeah.
Okay. Now that Councillor Craig is out of the room, don't think we need to close the door on this one. Do I have a mover for the Officer Recommendation, Part 1A? Moved Councillor McNeish. Do I have a seconder? Seconded Councillor Cox. Is there any opposition? Being no opposition, I put the motion. All those in favour? The motion is carried 6-0. If Councillor Craig could be requested to come back into the room, that would be great. Thank you, Councillor Craig. Do I now have a mover for the Officer Recommendation? And this will be broken into a number of parts, as discussed. So this is Part 1B. In essence, this involves the adoption of the budget, the rates and the dollar that underpin it, along with the rate instalment options, charges, interest for late payments, cancel fees and allowances, and amendments to the reserve purposes.
Can I just clarify, Mr Mayor, that you're looking at point 1, point 2 and point 3?
I am looking at what we have in front of us, which is, sorry, the entirety of Part 1, excluding the item that we just voted on. Okay. Do I have a mover? Can I grab a pen? Sorry. Moved Councillor Kennedy, thank you. Do I have a seconder? Seconded Councillor Cox. Is there opposition? There being opposition, Councillor Kennedy, would you wish to speak to your motion? Or the motion?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, councillors. I move the motion that we adopt essentially a 6% rate increase with all of the other relevant details in line with the several workshops that we have done and considering the submissions that have come forth since then. And it's a relatively balanced budget, and we'll see what the opposition has to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kennedy. Councillor Cox, do you wish to speak?
I'll reserve my right at this time. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Is there opposition? Speaker against Anne Ryan. Councillor Ryan.
I speak against not all of the budget, and I believe that council has listened to the community in the suggestion of a 1% reduction, and the only problem that I have, and I believe Councillor McNeish has addressed that, and we will be putting an amendment, and that is the reserve wording. And I'll speak to that. I'm assuming, Mr Mayor, that you're going to deal with Councillor McNish's amendments by...
Yes, I will do. So if you're not going to move that amendment, then I'm assuming Councillor McNish will. So, yeah.
And I'll speak to each individual item then. Thank you.
Put the amendments forward. Okay. Thank you. And now I have Speaker 4. Councillor Cake.
Yes, I'm going to speak for the rate increases that are in this of 6% and of 21% for holiday homes. And because I've taken time to consider this, I am going to read out my reasonings. This is relating to the 6% rate increase. After considering deliberations and active participation in 5 comprehensive budget workshops with fellow elected members, I am firmly of the view that maintaining the general rate increase of 6%, a reduction from the original advertised 7%, is not only responsible, but necessary for the long-term financial health of our city. Over the past 4 financial years, 2020 to 2021 to 23-24, we have consistently delivered rate increases that fell below the Consumer Price Index. While these decisions were made in good faith to ease pressure on ratepayers during challenging times, they have left the city's budget under strain. At the same time, the cost of delivering core services has risen significantly, with operating costs increasing by 7.7%, utility costs by 14%, and insurance premiums by a staggering 22%. Local government costs continue to outpace inflation, and this trend is compounded by strong population growth. With subdivision and development comes an increase in city assets, roads, parks, lighting, stormwater systems, all of which require servicing, maintenance and staffing. The community's expectation for service delivery have not diminished, and we are seeing increased demand on both existing and new facilities. The 2025-26 budget is the product of intensive collaboration and scrutiny. It reflects both the needs and priorities of our growing community and the input of elected members seeking to find savings wherever possible. It includes a balanced mix of capital improvement projects and operational funding, all aimed at enhancing the city's livability, environmental sustainability, economic resilience and social well-being. For these reasons, and because I believe in responsible, forward-thinking leadership, I cannot in good conscience support a rate increase any lower than 6%, what we've come up with. To do so would be to ignore the financial realities we face, the population growth we must plan for, and the very workshops in which I, along with my fellow colleagues, have actively participated in to find the best path forward. This decision is not made lightly, but with a full understanding of our fiscal responsibilities and the long-term well-being of our community. And as I still have a few minutes left, in regards to the 21% differential rate for holiday homes, again, following extensive elected member workshops and detailed budget analysis, and after reading of ratepayer submissions against any increase, I continue to support the proposal to implement a 21% differential rate increase for holiday homes, reduced from the initial 22%. Without this adjustment, the city would not be left without a critical funding source previously used to support the effective management of holiday homes and associated community expectations. Beyond simply replacing lost income, this differential rate ensures that the city can continue to fund our important contributions to tourism, marketing, area promotion and events activities, all of which not only benefit holiday home operators, but support local businesses, hospitality providers and the broader community. I'm skipping lots of pages because I'm cognizant of the time. Out of 93 formal submissions received, only 44 related specifically to holiday homes, indicating that while the matter is important, the broader community understand the necessity of fair contributions and shared responsibility in achieving the city's goals. This differential rate also enables the city to allocate funding towards other key priorities, including bushfire mitigation and measurements and reserve funding for sporting and recreation. With this in mind, I feel the 21% differential rate strikes the right balance between fairness, sustainability and forward planning. This increase delivers significant value for the community. supports responsible tourism management, and ensures the city can continue to deliver the services and infrastructure our residents and visitors rely on. As an elected member who has been fully engaged in the budget process, I believe it would be short-sighted and fiscally irresponsible for me not to continue to support this proposal. This is not simple about revenue, it's about delivering on the community's expectation, ensuring the long-term sustainability of our region. And I ask all councillors to support me. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cagg. Speaker against? Councillor McNeish.
Thank you, sir. And I agree with almost all of what Councillor Cagg said very well. I don't believe it is responsible to go 6% because the long-term financial plan that marks our progress over the next 10 years talks of a 7%, and then the year after probably 7%, and then on it goes because we're catching up from, this is important, from 2020-21 year, where the council then rated 4% below the local government cost index, and the next year, 5% below it. And then again the next year, 1.5% below. That money has to be caught up somewhere, okay? It just has to be. So when you're looking at a 6.5% rate increase, less than 2% for sport and rec, that is the highest desired service that we're underfunded at the moment, that we've all resolved and agreed to go with, that leaves 4.5%. And the local government cost index for this year is about 3.8%, correct, Pearson, something like that, 3.7, 3.8. So that leaves 0.7 of 1% that we are raising to spend on additional things. The comment about salt water, okay, a small amount there perhaps, but really that's the catch-up. So we're trying to catch up on a 4% under rate, a 5% under rate, and another 1.5% under rate all those years ago. Okay, there's over 10%, and this is catching up 0.7 of 1%. Now,
Councillor McNeish, I'll just remind you to address the council rather than the gallery, if that's okay.
Well done.
Thank
So
you.
I make that point very clear.
And Councillor Cagg, could you switch your microphone off as well? Sorry, just save confusion. Thank you.
So given that as the backdrop, and the understanding that if we don't rate now, we simply have to rate in a year or two's time. However, the caveat on that is to cut costs so we don't have to rate. There's two sides of the equation. There's revenue and there's costs. Now, the staff have done a lot of work putting us in a position now by recasting the chart of accounts so we can work out the value for money for all of our services. That's a huge amount of work. Really well done. So now, from now on, in the next coming few months, we can start to look at how we might generate productivity increases and the like. But at this moment in time, we're not there yet. So I'm asking for the council to have a 0.7 of 1% increase to help catch us up to 10.5% that wasn't rated a few years ago. I'm moving an amendment, so I'm foreshadowing this amendment that I'm going to move that adds a couple of other bits and pieces of tidy up, and the council can certainly look at the components of that and work out whether they want to add or subtract. And there's some scope within that if the councils want to collectively take some of that out, they can replace that with effectively buying a reduced rate increase. But, you know, the money's going to go for something I would suggest is needed anyway. So I wonder if I might move that amendment.
Yes.
Would you be happy, sir, if I did that?
Yes, if we can. Do you want to pause the time? Or? Okay.
It's on the screen.
Sure.
And this
If
is
we can just go talk through it, if you may, just so we've got
I just
clear.
look at the screen so
Sure.
everyone can see it on the screen.
Sorry.
In the context of the 6.5, which I've justified by trying to catch up, there it all is. That's just all technicalities for the rates in the dollar, which is required under the Act. So then if we move down, we get to the guts of what I would like to see and what I will need to support this budget.
Item 2, is
Yes,
that you want?
is item 2.
Thank you.
And it is that the saltwater required funds to continue to construct that project comes from a loan, not the building reserve, for which I don't believe it's appropriate. And that's a bit of an understatement. But leaving the 5.5 million in the reserve, of course, generates interest at 4 and a bit %. So you do the maths and there's some good money coming back in. And that saltwater matter needs to be isolated from the accounts. So transparently, we can all see what this huge project is presenting with us.
I don't want you
Then-
to debate the items,
Yeah,
if you
then
can just talk
point
to
three,
them, thank you.
Yeah, that would have probably given people time to read it, but that's the essence of it. At point 3, we have just had the resignation of our CEO. That's not, that's old news now, the way things travel. And all the rumours aren't correct. He's still there and alive and kicking, and here he is doing the job.
Councillor Manish.
Sorry. We will need money to implement.
Please address the gallery,
Yeah.
not the gallery.
We will need money to implement CEO performance criteria going forward. There's a lot of work and a lot of very specialised work to be done that we have plans for, and that's going to require some consulting help. There's no question. And when we have a temporary CEO sitting in there who's just struggling to, keep it, and all our executives are working really hard, then we need a little bit of help there. And the cost of recruiting the CEO is included in that.
Sure.
And then number 4 just seeks to tidy up the reserves for the new sport and recreation reserve to be at a district level. This is the serious big project that is embedded in the long-term financial plan that's going to cost a huge amount of money, but this is the number 1 issue that this community said we want.
Thank you. So these are the amendments you wish to put forward?
There's
Okay,
the 4 components of the amendments. Thank you, sir.
thank you. I will need a seconder then for these amendments.
Can I just ask a question, if I may? Are you going to separate them? Because I don't necessarily agree with
Yes.
one of the items.
Okay. What we can do is we could each talk to the motion, and you can pick out your areas, the amendments, and then at the end, we will vote individually. Otherwise, we're going to be going through each point, debating each point. So I'm saying if councillors are happy to talk to this amendment, which will be not the substantive of this stage, but it will be item part A with these amendments. So that's the way I'd like to do it. So what I will now, if you happy to second these amendments, okay, then I will now move to the amendments, and Councillor McNeish, you have 5 minutes to talk to your amendments. Thank you.
Well, the amendment point 1, of course, is a 6.5. And I don't want to labour that point, but if you don't rate today, you have to rate tomorrow and a little bit more tomorrow, because you don't get the interest on the rates that you rated today. Okay. So,
Sorry, Councillor McNeish, can you just take your seat? Sorry. I would ask that the gallery have a little respect for the councillors when they speak. I've let a fair bit of murmuring go on, but if you could respect the chambers, I appreciate that. Sorry, Councillor Manish, would you wish to continue?
I guess I'm reinforcing that the local government cost index is more than CPI. So that's an index that applies, of course, to our line of business. Point number 1 is then dealt with. Point number 2 is important because this is a marquee project, an iconic project, a high-profile project, the biggest project that the council's undertaken, and it's been a challenging project. There's a lot of public questions about the matter, and it requires transparency. And it will require a set of its own accounts going forward so that people can see how it's operating. And
Sorry, the gallery, please, can you allow Councillor McNeish to speak? Thank you.
So saltwater transparency is a key thing, and I don't accept that it was reasonable for the council to just assume it could access money in the building reserve we've arrived at this consolidated building reserve after years and years of previous ratepayers contributing to this building reserve. And we have over 300 assets to look after out of this building reserve, most of which were in place and built well before saltwater was even thought of. So for me, it's just not appropriate to use building reserve money collected over decades to fund a capital cost overrun and design fees for a building that's not even yet finished and doesn't hence qualify to be an asset to draw money from the building reserve. It's appropriate to borrow the money to add to the borrowings that was used to fund the project to this point. And leaving money in the building reserve for all the other things, for the other 300 and something assets in there that it has to look after, it'll be gaining interest. Okay. And number 3 is we have an issue. Our CEO has resigned. That is the most key appointment. The most key doesn't sound right, does it? The key appointment of any council is the one employee being the CEO. It has to be done right. There has to be research done into the contract, the terms, the process, the regulations have to be followed. We have to be guided through every step of the way because it is, let's face it, if a 5-year contract is offered, you know, that's up near $2 million. But it's not really the money because we're a $180 million budget organisation with $1 billion in assets. So put that in context with 0.5% of a rate increase, you know. So we need that money. So it's more, though, getting the right CEO and equipping that CEO with some extra funds to drive hard some KPIs for that new CEO to be accountable to and to put through the organisation, such as efficiencies, you know, a productivity dividend, generating, using new technologies, having upgraded hardware and software to produce better services with less. So that money's an investment, and it's there now. And we're still going to get the 2% into the Sport and Rec Reserve. There's still going to be a surplus, a little surplus at the end of the day. So point 3, I feel, is justified. It's an investment. And point 4, well, that's just tightening up the definition of the reserves, just to ensure that the biggest item that we're ever going to build is this district-level Sport and Rec Reserve. We have to acquire land. We have to talk about 50-metre heated pools are expensive because the one we've got, that's on its way out big time. We've got a lot of court space. Kids are playing basketball at 10:30 at night rather than doing their homework. You know, these are the kinds of things that we have to put in this precinct. It's exciting stuff, but it's expensive.
15 seconds.
Yep. So number 4 is just tightening that up and with the 2 points about the reserves. All other reserves that we have circulated in our extensive workshop for that shall remain as is because we need to discuss all the wording of those at a future time. Because every word is important, as we know.
Thank you, Councillor McNish. Is there a, sorry, the seconder, do you wish to speak?
I need to ask a question, if I may. So if 3 was removed, would that give us the 0.5%, which would take us back to the 6%?
So the budget that's presented to you for adoption by officers is already at 6%.
Yes.
So if you don't vote in point 3, you don't need to do anything else. That will actually mean that more of the surplus goes back to Sport and Rec. So that $350,000, 4.3 is proposing to be taken from the $1 million that's going to the Sport and Rec Reserve from the surplus.
Right.
If you don't vote for that, then that will just continue to go to the Sport and Rec Reserve. You already have 6% rates in your budget, so you don't need to do anything else if you vote that down.
So to be voting that down puts us back to the 6%.
Yeah, we're already at 6%.
No,
The
it-
only reason the rates would change is if you vote for number 1 in this amendment, then the rates would go back up to 6.5.
Sorry,
Yeah.
Councillor Pearson, just, my understanding is that money's moving into the reserves anyway.
The
So
sport and
this
rec
is being
reserve.
taken out of the reserves, so it doesn't change the rate. It'd still be 6.5. It's
no.
just where the movement of the money is coming
No,
from.
so point 1 of this amendment is to adjust the rates in the dollar to reflect a 6.5% increase.
Yes.
Not a 6% increase. Okay, so that's point 1. So if you vote for point 1, the rate increase will become 6.5% and 22%, not 6 and 21. Point 2 is to insert the loan and the required funding for the loan, and that is proposed to be funded by taking some of the money that you were going to put to Sport and Rec from your 24-25 surplus and paying for the loan from that. So that doesn't affect any of the rates in the dollars or anything. If you could just do that standalone. Point 3 is to add another $350,000 to the operating expenditure, again funded from the surplus of 24-25 that was otherwise going into the Sport and Rec. So if you don't vote for point 3, then you will just continue to put the money into Sport and Rec. So
But
the
there's-
only one that's changing the rates is point 1.
Sorry, I just need to really clarify because I'm reading it as point 3 is saying funded by the reduction in the transfer,
Of the 24-25 surplus,
which means there'll just be less transfer. Whereas
That's right.
The 350, we don't get an extra 350,000.
I think to assist with what Councillor Ryan was saying before and what Ms Pearson is saying is that if you want to affect what the actual percent...
Oh, sorry, speak up, Councillor.
Please.
Please.
So if you want to affect the percentage of rate increase, you have to address point 1. Point 3 won't do that. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
If point 3 wasn't addressed now, how would it be addressed in the future? For argument's sake, Mr CEO, if you resigned next week instead of this week, where would we have got the money from to look at hiring a new CEO?
So you do have a couple of line items within the budget around discretionary line items, particularly in the CEO area. That would give you enough to do basic recruitment processes. I think my understanding of what Councillor McNish's amendment is here is actually money that will address the KPIs that you will consider adopting for your new CEO and what they're hoping to achieve. And that might mean consultancy funds for studies, etc. Whether you need all of that would be up to you as a council. So if it was just the recruitment, you would have enough in the budget in that discretionary line item to cover that.
I'm still trying to get my head around the fact that that 350,000 may well be found in another pot.
perhaps if I could, so at the moment, you have a surplus from 24-25, and what we've done in the budget that we've presented to you is put $1 million of that surplus into the new Sport and Rec Reserve. What this amendment proposes is to take some of that $1 million and use it for other things. So to use it for the loan and or point 3, the 350,000. So it's really using that, correct me if I'm wrong, Councillor Moniz, but it's really using that surplus to fund these things rather than putting all of it into the new Sport and Rec Reserve. So that's what part 2 and 3 are proposing. Part 1 is proposing that you increase the rates to 6.5%, which will give you more money and would probably result in a slight surplus budget. And then you could determine what to do with that down the track, yeah, if you increase the rates. Or you could put take less money out of the surplus. So it kind of, it's all going to balance out, but it depends on the way you want to do it.
Councillor Ryan, do you wish to speak? Second that?
I will, thank you.
Thank you.
I speak against point number 1, Councillor McNish, because I believe in our discussions, we did have some good discussions last week on the savings that we could have, and I think all the submissions that I read, people are hurting. I know that. I know that when I go to the grocery store, my meat purchase, because I'm a carnivore, is generally double these days. It's quite debilitating at times, but you compound that with all the other things that the ratepayers and taxpayers have to pay for. It's problematic, so I will be voting against that. Point 2. Wholeheartedly agree with this one. I believe that the motion to take the money out of this reserve was ill thought out, and I don't believe that it is appropriate to have done so, and we're seeking advice on that particular line item anyway. Point 3, I think that's a given. We can't limp along without a CEO in the future. Point 4, yes, agree that the particular wording has to be put back in, but the issue of the reserves. Last week we got a list of reserves, and we were told it's just wordsmithing or whatever the issue was. But they're wholesale changes to accounts of significance. The community has a right to know why the changes are necessary, and to that end, so are councillors prior to making any decision. During our briefing last week, a number of councillors raised the issue of why the reserve formed part of the budget consideration, and we were told we don't have to, they can be removed. But now they're back. Having a read of the officer's comment on these reserves, it was that none of the changes have any substantive impact on the current use of the reserve, and I can confirm they don't. So if that's the case, what's the hurry? So I will support the removal of item 12 from the budget. And there's a whole rationale in the Act as to why the changes could be made during the budget deliberations. But if we truly want to be open, honest and accountable, then I want to know why, for instance, the reserve for furniture and equipment has changed from to provide funds for the major maintenance, renewal, replacement, upgrading and future requirements with respect to furniture and equipment assets within the district. 2, to set aside, hold and provide funding for major operational maintenance and capital expenditure requirements associated with new assets, as well as renewal, upgrade and replacement of the existing furniture and equipment assets. It has major implications on capital expenditure and the rating of those reserves. What might they be? Think the new building that we have up the road that is yet to be opened, and that's why I will be taking the conservative view that these should be standalone. They should come to council with a report so that we can show you, the community, what that money could potentially, or why the changes and what it could be potentially for. So councillors, I urge you to also vote for the removal of these changes at point 4. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ryan. Is there a speaker against? Councillor Kennedy.
Thank you, Councillor McNish, for bringing this amendment to us. So again, a reminder, we had many workshops and we had people that wanted 5% and other elected members 7%, and we sort of came to not an agreement, because we don't do that outside of the chamber, but and the officers have arrived with 6%. So looking at the capital expenditure of the city and acknowledging that the LGCI index is 3.6, we have no big capital projects. We've cut back on everything and we're just looking at sport and rec. So that arrives us at a 5.6, and for those extras, 6%. So 6%, happy with that. 6.5, not happy with. That's point one that I was speaking to. Point two, the council, with every elected member here, had already resolved this issue with where we get the money for, because saltwater needed an amendment to the budget because there was extra funds required. So we either get the money from reserves or from a loan. And the council resolved to get it from reserves, because ultimately, if we get it from a loan, it costs us more. We're at this budget, we're looking at cost savings. Well, if we go down the loan path, it's going to cost us more. It's that simple, really. Point three, I think that is fine. I'm happy with point three. So, yeah, interested to see how we vote on this, but anyway. Point four, thank you, Councillor Ryan, for looking into these reserve purposes, and that, yeah, okay, we do want to be transparent and we do want the community to add feedback to these. But at the same time, I can understand that this is the officers' attempt at efficiency. We have this moment of budget, we do the budget requirements, and we can change the reserve budgets at this time. A least efficient way of doing it is later on we go and advertise for the reserve. So, I mean, there's the officers trying to be efficient with their time. Again, we're looking at the budget. How can officers be efficient? Well, they've put this forward to us. So I'm happy to settle with this one. Actually, I'd like to make an amendment, 2.4, and simply, I think this goes both ways. So my amendment, it's very simple.
Sorry, 2 seconds. For that to happen, then you'd have to get agreement from, as we're just debating these amendments. Otherwise, you'd have to foreshadow an alternate with your amendment.
Right.
Or get the agreement of Councillor McNish.
Oh, well, let's try an agreement first. Councillor McNish, can I have consent to simply just change point 4 to your last sentence?
No.
Thank you for that quick response. And that's what I'm going to say to point 4, is that I think there needed to be it goes both ways, so we can either accept the amendment that's put in front of us, which Councillor McNish's purpose, and then we have the officer's purpose. So I think that we either, scrap them all and at a later date look at these amendments to the reserve purposes. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kennedy. Do I have speaker for? Speaker against? Councillor Love.
I rise once again to speak in opposition. Mainly, I will be talking about clause 2 on the grounds that it introduces a serious risk of generational Inequity, compromising the financial sustainability of our city and unfairly impacting both younger and older residents. As elected representatives, we are responsible for ensuring that the decisions we make today do not come at the expense of those who come after us. We must act not only as decision makers for the present, but as stewards for the future. This amendment proposes that the city take out $5.49 million loan over 10 years to fund saltwater-related capital works, construction, design, contingency and professional fees, along with hundreds of thousands of dollars in interest and loan-related fees. This is a significant long-term liability that will be repaid not by us, but by future generations, younger residents, families and children who had no say in the decision, but will be paying for it through future rates and budget constraints. Mind you, this capital project has been bandied about and consulted. I understand it was very controversial, it was very divisive in the community, but it has been constantly surveyed and
Councillor Love, can you just take a seat, please? I don't want to remove people from the gallery, but I see it's very unfair when a councillor is trying to debate and speak to the other councillors and all we can hear is chatter in the background. Is that a fair request? Because if it continues, I will have to empty the gallery. Good luck with that. So therefore, do I have your respect to at least allow the councillors to talk? Thank you. Continue.
As I was saying, I understand it's been a very divisive topic within the community. However, let's remember that this has been consulted and surveyed and pushed by community members for the last, at least, when I was looking into it, when this was coming back to us back in December, it had begun in about 20 years ago, the consulting for this. So let's remember that the future generations had not actually asked for this. Some people, yes, 100% us living here and have, but let's think about the people that will be also moving here. To fund the repayment of this loan, the amendment also proposes a reduction of nearly $600,000 from the 2024-25 surplus that was earmarked for transfer into the new district level sport and rec reserve. In simple terms, this means that not only are we placing a future debt burden on our younger generations, but we are also reducing their access to vital infrastructure, facilities they will need for health, recreation and community connection. We are asking them to pay more and receive less. This amendment doesn't only affect young people, it also places older generations at risk by diverting almost $1 million away from long-term infrastructure reserves and locking the city into a decade of loan repayments on top of all of the existing loan repayments. We risk creating ongoing financial strain that will likely be felt across all areas of service delivery. As a result, older residents, many of whom rely on city services for connection, mobility and well-being, may experience a reduction in service quality or delays in infrastructure maintenance and upgrades. Without deliberate future-focused investment today, we may see a community where essential services for older residents gradually diminish, not because they are no longer needed, but because the city can no longer afford them due to choices made here tonight, or more extravagant rate increases to be able to fund those services. This amendment represents a shift away from responsible long-term financial planning. It redirects significant future funding from a reserve designed to deliver inclusive community infrastructure and commits the city to debt repayments that will outlast this council's term and potentially the next. That is not good governance. It is short-term thinking at the expense of future stability. Our community trusts us to make decisions that are balanced, transparent and forward-looking. Approving this amendment could erode that trust and raise concerns about whether we're truly safeguarding this city's future. This amendment imposes a significant financial burden on future generations, risks diminished services for our ageing population and compromises our city's ability to deliver essential infrastructure in the future. Essential infrastructure that the community has quite clearly and vocally requested for. It places today's convenience over tomorrow's capacity. I urge my fellow councillors to reject this amendment and instead pursue a more balanced approach, one that respects the principle of generational equity, protects our financial
10 seconds.
sustainability, and delivers fair outcomes for all members of our community, now and into the future.
Thank you, Councillor. Speaker for? Speaker against? Councillor Cox?
Just before I speak, Mr Mayor, may I ask a question
You may ask a question
of Director
clarification.
Pearson? Point 3, the operating CEO discretionary expenditure of $350,000. If it wasn't to be added to the budget in this amendment, would we be able to adequately fund the recruitment of a new CEO without having to dip into the Sport and Recreation Reserve?
So yeah, as the CEO indicated earlier, there is already a balance in that fund that would be adequate to fund the CEO recruitment on its own.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr Mayor. I will rise to speak against Councillor McNish's proposed amendments. Point 1, I concur with the staff and Councillor Craig and the other councillors that 6% is an adequate increase, and I acknowledge that it is a high increase, and I acknowledge that there are people in our community who are experiencing cost of living pressure. The 6% does constitute really a 3.99% increase, with 2% going into a dedicated sport and recreation reserve. We have heard the community when we consulted in our community, our strategic community plan, that sport and recreation was extremely important to our community, and that their desire was for us to improve the Geograph Leisure Centre or build a new purpose-built 50-metre swimming pool, undercover basketball courts, improve our sporting ovals and improve all our sporting infrastructure. It is a reality that as the City of Busselton we are receiving, despite our best efforts at advocating, we are receiving no state or federal funding for any of our large infrastructure projects. And therefore it is incumbent, unfortunately, on the ratepayers that we will have to pay for it ourselves at this point, because we talk to ministers, we talk to governments, locally, federally and state, and they're not giving us any indication or any hope that we're getting any funding. And it's unfortunate, and I feel for our ratepayers that that is the case. And I feel that ratepayers should go out to their local politicians and talk to state and federal governments, as we do as councillors every single day and the staff do, trying our best to get funding. In the absence of that funding, we have to find the money to support future development and infrastructure. I note in quite a few of the submissions, the comparison was made to, well, the City of Perth have only got a 3.1% increase. Unfortunately, that's like comparing apples to oranges. The City of Perth have 113 kilometres of road, and most of that is main roads road. The City of Busselton has 369 kilometres of unsealed road and 955 kilometres of sealed road that we have to maintain. We have 56 playgrounds. We have kilometres and kilometres of coastline that we have to protect from erosion. We have to instigate mitigation works. We have a lot of money that needs to be spent. I know that perhaps everyday people can't see what the city is spending money on, but trust me, we are spending money on bushfire mitigation, future infrastructure projects. We are trying our best to put money away to plan for future infrastructure development to support our growing population by putting money aside to ensure that we can meet our future needs while ensuring we maintain a high level of service delivery. And trust me, councillors, we all know, we all sit in this room, we've all done hours of budget workshops, that we will be looking at service delivery, and if we can make any efficiencies, we need to assure the community that we will do so to the best of our ability, because nobody wants to see our ratepayers, a huge impost on our ratepayers. But we want to see, we live in an amazing place and we do provide amazing facilities for our community, and we want our parks to look great, and we want to be able to have a happy community, a happy and connected community that has amazing facilities. And that's what everybody in this room is sitting here and wants to do. Therefore, that's why I support a 6% rate rise. Very quickly, I don't agree with point 2. I've made my reasons for that in the past very clear. I think it's fiscally irresponsible to, at this point, take out a loan. We can always take out a loan in the future if we need to fund the building reserve. Point 3, as Director Pearson just mentioned, we already have the $350,000 if necessary to fund a new CEO. And point 4, I don't agree with renaming the Sport and Recreation Reserve to a district level Sport and Recreation Reserve, just because I believe that narrows the focus potentially of where that money can go. And we don't know, we know with COVID that nothing is certain, and we might want to fund other sporting infrastructure, given that particular piece of sporting infrastructure could be upwards of $80 million. And the community might decide that actually that's too much money for one sporting infrastructure. We might want that money shared between various different sporting infrastructure projects. So I believe that we keep that a bit broader. And yes, I urge you to not support these amendments. Thank you, councillors.
Thank you, Councillor Cox. Speaker for? Speaker against? Look, I will rise to speak against, but only on a couple of, just highlighting, thank you very much, Councillor Cox, what you've said. As we say, I just want people to be clear, this is a rise of 3.99 plus 2% for the sport and rec. We just saw Bunbury agree on a 6.5% rise. Again, it was 4% plus 2.5% that they are putting into future funds. The costs of everything have gone up. Sport and rec is our #1 request that we got back from the community. And that's the biggest request that we have. Now, we put in a plan, I think it was the 2020 to 2030 plan, that had 38 million to do all this plans. Since COVID, that's gone out the window. I think everyone would agree with us that the building costs have literally doubled. Now, for us to find that further 38 out of thin air when we are not being supported by state or federal government, unfortunately, if we want our community and our kids and our adults even to go out and have the sporting facilities and the indoor basketball courts and the new pools and all of these things, unfortunately, we will not be able to offer them that unless we raise the rates. So that is 2.5%. On an average, 2% on average is around $34 a year per person, per average ratepayer. So that's what we're requesting for you on that one. With regards to borrowing the money, well, look, we've been here before. We were here in December, and I stood up and said, if we were to borrow this money, on a rough calculation, it would cost the ratepayers around $500,000 to $600,000 at that time. Now, Councillor Lanisha said, oh, that's great, just put the money in the bank. So, unfortunately, you can't borrow money at the same rate that you get the interest rate at. So you will always lose. But we do have money in the bank, and we have loans that are maybe less. That's why we are making money on our reserves, and I think it was probably in excess of $1 million or so just from the money that we've got in the bank at the moment. So I think for us, again, to borrow money, this has gone through council twice, and it is now been revoked, and this is not something that we want to see again. So this is just another way of trying to, So on item 3, look, we've recently gone through a recruitment process not too long ago that I remember, unfortunately, and 350,000, I'm not sure where that figure is going to come from. We do have the budget. Setting KPIs and all of these other things will be done later on. We are about to go into election process. We may well have a new council, so I believe that is the new council's decision to make with the new CEO that they feel fit to bring in. And with regards to the reserves, I mean, the only thing is, I read one out. So we talked about, Councillor Ryan raised up the furniture and equipment reserve. So the old reserve says to provide funds for the major maintenance, renewal, replacement, upgrading and future requirements with respect to the furniture and equipment assets within the district. The new one says to set aside, hold and provide fundings for major operational maintenance, capital expenditure requirements associated with new assets as well as renewable, upgrade and replacement of existing furniture and equipment assets. I see no hidden, and they all of them have changed to provide funding for, to set aside and hold and provide funding. Parks and Gardens, to provide funding for the major, changing to set aside, hold and provide funding for. They're basically the same. It's a bit of wordsmithing. And at the end of the day, councillors can choose to change these reserves at any time they want. So that's my point on that. So on that point, I would be saying no to all 4 amendments. Thank you. Speaker for? Speaker against? Councillor McNeish, you have your right of reply.
Thank you, sir. Where do I start? Okay. The long-term financial plan talks about a 7% this year and a 7% next year, and then probably 6 and 7s thereafter. Simply rating 1% less this year just means all other things remaining the same. You rate more next year. That's exactly the problem we don't want to exacerbate, because it happened 3 or 4 years ago where we underrated by 10.5%. Just, you know, why would we replicate that problem? It's bizarre. Okay, so the CEO KPIs are there to make money and to save money. As I said, it's an investment. You need to invest a little bit of money in doing your feasibility studies, and if they're going to make some serious money, you've got to advertise them under 359 of the Local Government Act. And that requires full-blown business plans to be done, as we well know. So I think with the temporary CEO juggling things, coming new to the organisation, and all the staff very busy, especially with long-term financial planning stuff, we'll need consulting help to do that, to work out how to make money and save money. So that is just an investment. If you use the reserve fund, Sport and Rec facility fund for the district level to fund other sport and rec bits and pieces as you go along, you won't have the money in there to say to the state government and the feds, a third, give us your money, we've got 30 million in there now, we need it matched and we're ready to go. It just won't be there. Because councils along the way will use that money for the bits and pieces that they should be funding under their normal operating for that year. So, and as for salt water, what did I write down here? What was the words? I hardly think it's an essential infrastructure requested by the community. I'm sorry.
Please.
I'm sorry about that. And as for when the council revoked a decision that it made a month later from a late item off the floor, yeah?
Councillor McNeish.
Well, that's what happened, sir. That's exactly what happened. I'm just repeating the reality, and I'm addressing what was said in rebuttal. So, there was no time to consider advice from the local government that I believe that was an inappropriate use of reserve funds, unlawful in fact. And I have put that matter
Councillor
to the
McNeish,
department
I don't believe
for
this is part of a
clarification.
rebuttal, I'm sorry, but if you
This
continue...
is clarifying exactly why
No.
this matter...
Councillor McNeish, take a seat, please. Councillor McNeish, I just wish you to rebut and not to start getting debate over previous decisions and other things that are not related. I understand it was brought up, but it's not for you to bring a personal opinion now on a previous decision of council. Thank you.
It is exactly my right to rebut what was said and have motive for why it was
Again.
Because using the precautionary principle, if there is any doubt, would be to follow the debt funding option. The money's not lost, it is held in reserve, and it is a transparent way to continue to round out this project. And also, for the building reserve, that building reserve was commenced about 30 years ago, probably even longer. So people donating, paying their rates into that building reserve, that was 25 years before saltwater even started. And the purpose of that reserve is to go to buildings. The saltwater is not logged as a building yet, and so I believe it's absolutely inappropriate to use that money. And it should be debt funded, like the balance of the construction of the saltwater has been. So perhaps there's promise on items 4, 3, 2 and 1, and I would request that we deal with them in that order. It appears that there's support and not support for those various things, so perhaps if we knock them off before we get to number 1, which was the big item that would fund it all. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your advice, but I will go in order of 1, 2, 3, 4. So I will put the amendment number 1 first forward. All those in favour? All those against? It is lost 1, 6. Item 2. All those in favour? All those against? Item is lost 2, 4. Item 3. 2, 5. Do apologise. There's 7 of us, isn't there? Did I get the last one? Yeah, sorry, 2, 5. My apologies. Item 3. All those in favour? All those against? The item is lost 2, 5. Item 4. All those in favour? All those against? Item is lost 2, 5. I now return to the substantive motion. Speaker 4. If you wish me to remind you, it was moved by Councillor Kennedy, seconded by Councillor Cox. We've had Speaker Anne Ryan against, we've had Speaker Val Caig for, and we've had against Councillor McNeish. So I'm looking for a speaker for the motion. Speaker against. Councillor Cox, you reserved your right of reply.
Yes, I'll continue to reserve my right, and my reasons for supporting this have been made clear in previous debate. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Kennedy, you have your rebuttal.
Thank you. There's been a lot of talk tonight, so keep it very short. My only rebuttal is on the risk of underrating the local government, but we're going to have a look at our service levels, so we'll be able to look at savings there in the future, and we've also got AI to help us with all of our other efficiency costs. So that's my rebuttal against that one, and I'd encourage you all to vote for the 6%. Thank you, elected members.
Thank you very much. So I put point A. If we can just have the officer's recommendation, their motion in front of us. So that's point B. So and point A will be back to the substantive. We've got point B here.
This is point B.
Yeah, but I've got to vote. We've just voted on the amendment.
We voted on point A.
So we're voting on the substantive.
B, yep. So this is B. A was councillor, because it's 1B. Just Cags was
Oh, sorry, 1B. Sorry, my apologies. Yes, I understand that. Okay, so I'll put the motion forward. All those in favour? So that's Mayor Cronin, Councillor Caig, Councillor Love, Councillor Cox, Councillor Kennedy. Those against, Deputy Anne Ryan and Councillor Andrew McNeish. The motion is carried 5-2. We now move on to part 2. Part 2 is that the council reaffirms the adoption of the schedule of fees and charges for the 25-26 financial year as amended, included within this attachment 2. Do I have a mover? Moved Councillor Craig, seconded. Councillor Love, is there opposition? Being no opposition, is that opposition? Yes. Okay, sure, there is opposition. Councillor Craig, would you like to put the motion?
As written, again, we went through a lot of workshopping on all these and come to this decision. And I don't feel like speaking any further for it, other than I believe it's the right thing for us to do.
Thank you. Councillor Love, do you wish to speak?
Will reserve my right, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor, Speaker against? No speakers against, therefore I put the motion. All those in favour? The motion is carried 9-0. Absolute 7-0, absolute majority. Used to everyone being here, aren't I? I was thrown by Councillor McNeish there. Okay, we now move on to part 3 of the recommendation that is in front of you. Do I have a mover? Moved Councillor Cox. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Love. Is there opposition? Being no opposition, I put the motion. All those in favour? The motion is carried 7-0. Thank you, councillors. Being no further items, I close this meeting, declare the meeting closed at 5:19, and I thank everyone for their attendance. Thank you. I will give councillors a